Hello and welcome to the Today's Homeowner Weekly Podcast. We're here to help you with the challenges we all face as homeowners. I'm Danny Lipford.
And I'm Joe Truini. And each week, Danny and I are here on the podcast to answer any and all home improvement questions.
And we want to hear from you. Send us your questions or comments at todayshomeowner.com/podcast.
Okay, Danny, let's get started.
Today's Homeowner Podcast is brought to you by the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. This week, we help out a homeowner that's really wanting to screen in their back porch. It can seem a bit intimidating, but we break it down, and I guarantee you it might inspire you to do the same thing at your house.
And we're going to talk to a homeowner who has a painted tub. She just bought a house, and the previous owner painted the tub for some reason, and the paint's peeling off. So we're going to give her a couple options how to clean up that tub and maybe get it refinished.
You know, on our Today's Homeowner Hotline, which we encourage you to call anytime, 24 hours a day, is 800-946-4420. We get some amazing calls on there, including a lot of calls where people are just asking the question, but not leaving any way for us to contact them back. So occasionally we like to answer a few of those. They're pretty interesting.
And I've got a simple solution on how to drill several holes to precisely the same depth with the help of a small strip of masking tape.
And like we do every week here on our podcast, we're going to give you some things that you can really use. So let's get started. Hope that we can help you with some of the problems you're having around your house. Just like Jeannie in Illinois is on with us right now.
Thank you.
Okay, tell us about this tub. I understand now. Have you just purchased this house, or what's the status with the exact tub?
Right. We just purchased the house. It's an older home, and we thought about replacing the tub, but it's so large. It's oversized, and, of course, it's very heavy. And so my husband's like, can't we do something else to it? But it's peeling.
Yeah.
It looks like someone else has tried to paint it or something. I'm not sure, but it's peeling. And I'm like, I'm a little concerned what we can do.
Well, I tell you, it can turn into be quite a bit of work. The good thing is when you have a cast iron tub like that, it is, well worth trying to salvage. But what may have happened is when someone's selling a home, sometimes they just go in and clean a tub and just take a can of spray paint and spray paint it. Boy, it looks pretty good, but it's just not going to last. Mm-hmm. There's also some home kits, do-it-yourself kits that can really be a challenge because the biggest part of that process, like many paint job, is to really prep the surface. And when you're prepping a tub for painting or refinishing, you've got a lot to deal with there. And really, with the oversized cast iron tub like you have here, it's a lot of surface to deal with. And then you get into the professionals that have better products and so forth to go about it. Joe, I guess the first thing here would be stripping any of that existing paint off. I wonder what kind of solvent would be the best one to go after it. But you have to be pretty aggressive on it.
Yeah, Gene, what I would do, the first thing you need to do is scrape off any loose paint. And you can just use a razor blade scraper, one of those the metal handles that takes the razor blade that slides in so you have a nice straight edge. And you just scrape off any loose paint and see how it comes off. If it all comes off, then great, just keep scraping. But I suspect you're only going to get some of the blistered paint off, and some of it will be adhered pretty well. And then there's a couple of, you could use a chemical paint stripper for something really strong, but I think I would start with something a little more mild. And there's a company called Goof Off you may have heard of. Mm-hmm. And Goof Off makes it's just called Professional Strength Goof Off. And just follow the directions, just brush it on. I think a whole gallon costs less than $20 at Home Depot. You just brush it on and follow the directions. You let it wait a while, then you scrape or scrub it off. And if that gets it all off, then you'll be able to evaluate the condition of the existing tub and then decide what you want to do. As Danny mentioned, there are professional services that can come and give you basically a brand new looking tub. Now, it might cost $400 or $500. And this is a great photograph you sent me. First, I thought the photograph was out of whack. And then you said it was because it seems such a long, narrow tub. I hope you have a big water heater, because that's a big soaking tub. It's certainly worth saving, I guess is the point. So that's what I would recommend. Try the Goof Off. If it doesn't work, try a chemical paint stripper, ventilate the area really well. And then once you get it, and that will come off of there. It's just a matter of what does it look like underneath. I suspect it doesn't look great, or somebody wouldn't have painted it in the first place. And then you'll have to call a tub refinisher.
Okay.
I think in the end, though, you'd be happy. I think you'd be happy that you went through all that expense and trouble.
And even with that expense and even with that work, it's a fraction of the cost of removing that tub and putting a new one in that would require you to rework the surround and that type of thing. So hopefully we've...
And enclose the opening, too, because the alcove, you're not going to get a tub that size any longer.
No.
Jean, thanks so much for being with us. Let us know if we can help you any other way.
All right. Thank you much.
Okay, our pleasure. And it's time for our Best New Product segment brought to you by the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. Buying water bottles in bulk is a great way to have healthy water on hand for drinking and cooking, but you end up with dozens of plastic bottles. I always encourage recycling, but there's another option to get the clean water you need without dealing with the mess. GE's under-sink osmosis filtration system discreetly provides the cleanest water for your household. This system filters your water 3 times to ensure you're drinking water that is 96% clear of any lead, arsenic, and ammonia. The filter is discreet, installed right under your sink, and filters up to 11 gallons of water daily. You'll also get a stylish chrome faucet with an indicator built in to let you know when it's time to replace the filter. I actually have one of these at my house, and when you're using it, it'll flash green if it's good, and it'll start flashing red if you need to change it. It makes it very easy to change. So you can find out more information on GE's under-sink osmosis filtration system by logging on to HomeDepot.com. All right, well, let's get right back to our caller. Carlene is in Tennessee. Carlene, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Danny. But first, I would like to say how much I love you and your show.
Oh, well, I'll tell you
Hey, I
what.
love Danny and his show, too.
I think you're fantastic. But the question I have for you today is I am interested in screening my back porch, and I would love to have some helpful hints.
Okay. All right. Certainly. Well, you have what type of porch do you have now, and approximately how large is it?
Okay, it's 7 by 12, and it's all open except for 3 posts.
Okay. And are those posts wood?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, they are wood.
Okay. All righty. And where that post, I assume at the top it has some type of beam that runs around, or it terminates onto something up there, which I assume is some type of beam.
That's correct.
Okay.
And it's that beam, my posts are made out of wood, but that beam is covered in aluminum.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I see a lot of people in different parts of the country using aluminum, extruded aluminum to make screen porches and everything, but I've always liked to use wood. And, using some treated 2x4s. And one of the things I like to do, now when you're building a wall, you put it on usually 16-inch centers, but that kind of blocks your view a lot of times. And what you can do is you can buy some of the screen, and I like to use the fiberglass type screen that kind of is a darker color to it.
Okay.
And you can buy it like 32 inches wide.
Okay.
So that way you can use your existing post and you can come off of it 32 inches, and you'll put a 2x4 at the bottom for a plate, 2x4 at the top that you can secure to that aluminum material on the beam ahead above there.
Mm-hmm.
And then really you've created a space that you can staple that screen on, and then use the treated lattice strips that you can nail on the top of that. And I'll tell you, Carlene, you can do this. I mean, you can make it happen so quickly. Key thing, though, you got to have a door in there, and getting a really nice door that will work well for you. And I'll tell you, you're in pretty good shape fairly quickly with putting that screen up like that.
Well, I have one more question since you brought up the door. Is there any way, instead of having a door open up, that you could make it where it would slide by so you wouldn't have to worry about that door hitting anything?
Well, I was at a house the other day that had actually a sliding screen door. First time I have ever seen that.
Well, they have the phantom screens, Danny, that slide to the right or left.
Right. You have, you do have those that that actually roll up into a little small channel, and you'd have it come over and then hook hook over to it. It's a retractable screen that runs, left to right.
Right.
That is an option there because that way it keeps it out of the way. You can bring it over so that you don't have that swing. That's probably a better opportunity to use that, because the sliding one, what happens is it's hard to make that get back to the opening and be tight to keep the insects out. It's just a little bit awkward like that, and just doesn't really look as good. But having a phantom retractable screen like that's a great way to go.
Is that easy?
Oh yeah, it's pretty easy. The only thing about those is I don't think you can get one that you can install yourself. I think it requires them to have professionals come out and use that, to be able to have them install it. But there are some other brands out there. ODL. You should check them out online. ODL.
Okay.
And they may have something that's a little more do-it-yourself friendly in the $200 range that can solve that problem for you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your help, and I'll continue watching you guys.
Hey, well, we certainly appreciate those good words like that, and we've got a brand new season number 22, right around the corner.
Well, I tell you, this is how dedicated my husband and I are about you. We get up every Saturday morning at 4:30 a.m. to watch your show.
Whoa,
Wow.
That is early there. Wow.
Carlene, that's great.
They do have these fancy devices called DVRs. You might want to try that, and you can get an extra hour of sleep.
Oh, well, it doesn't matter. We like to get up early anyway.
Well, the next show we tape, I'll be thinking about you and your husband and how dedicated you are. I really appreciate that.
You have a great day, and thank you so much for answering my question.
Okay, our pleasure. Best of luck to you. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
That's
wow,
sweet.
That is just great. That's one of the things, us being out on television all these years and now here on radio for over 10 years. We've got some really cool homeowners out there that feel like they know us, and we want them to feel that way. And then to be able to now to engage with them on radio here and our other social media platforms. Pretty darn cool. That's a good little job we have here, Joe.
Yeah, that's excellent because they see us on air on TV and they think they know the people who appear on the screen, but they don't get a chance to interact. Here, you can just call us up and we'll talk to you.
Exactly. We make it pretty easy. Again, I'll remind you on that phone number 1-800-946-4420, and also be able to send us an email at any time. today'shomeowner.com/ask. And one of the things that happens each and every week, we get a lot of callers that will ask questions. We feel like it's right every now and then to grab a few of those recorded calls and see if we can help them with some of their answers.
I am designing an aging-in-place bathroom. The master bathroom shower is about 5 by 5. I am interested in putting a door on that, and I'm just wondering what your recommendations are for door width. I know a lot of people probably wouldn't put a door in, but just for warmth and things like that, I am curious about what your opinion is of that.
Okay. Well, that's perfectly understandable, and certainly the minimum width I would consider is 3 feet, and you do want that door to open to the outside, which is pretty much a code in most areas that opens to the outside. And really one of the reasons for that is in the event there is a situation in the shower where someone collapses or has a slip and fall. You don't want that person to be pushed against the door to where you can't push it in. That's why it always opens out. But for handicap accessibility and aging in place considerations, certainly having that out is the best way to go. Don't forget about the handrails and grab bars to make it even safer. And I would recommend that on any shower in any tub area because of to try to avoid that slip and fall.
Hey, Danny. Hey, Joe. Question about WD-40. Can't get it out of the can. Once it's halfway down, can't get any more WD-40 out of it. I don't get it. It happens a lot.
I don't get it. Yeah, that is frustrating. It often happens with spray paint, right? You buy a can, you spray about half of it, and just can't get the rest out, and there's not much you can do. It's a little more unusual for WD-40. WD-40 comes in 2 types. Some of the cans just have a spray top, just a little spray nozzle, not unlike a spray paint can. And the other newer ones, which are really great, have this fold down nozzle you may have seen, where you can spray it just like a traditional can, but then it has a nozzle that pops up and it has a little spray tube on it for getting in little tight spaces. But if you have that type, if you have time with the fold down nozzle, what you're trying to do is grab that red top and rotate it about 1/4 turn, and then try it. If it doesn't spray, rotate it again and try it again. What you're trying to do is realign the dip tube, they call it the dip tube, which is inside the can, because it might be at a position where it's just not getting to the WD product that's in the can. So try that, keep rotating until it sprays. That usually fixes it. If it just has the spray tip, not the fold down nozzle, but just the spray tip, try turning it upside down and spraying it. And again, move it around. That may realign the dip tube. Now, this is assuming, of course, if you've already exhausted all the gas that's inside the can, which is called the expellant, if you've already exhausted all that, then there's nothing that's going to push that product out, so there's not much you can do. And I'll tell you another little tip I learned from the experts at WD-40, that you can expel that gas and the can won't empty if you spray it and sweep it side to side when you spray it, kind of like a spray paint can again. If you do that, you're allowing too much of the gas to come out. So try to hold it steady whenever you use WD-40, and the gas will stay in it, and you'll probably get all the product out. Okay, let's go to the next question.
My problem is that I saw on one of your shows that if you had painted a bubble ceiling, it would be very difficult to scrape it, if not impossible. Mine has been painted twice. I suffered severe water damage from a bathroom line that broke upstairs over my dining room. Would it be easier just to replace the entire dining room ceiling, or should I go ahead and try to have a contractor try to scrape all of this off and blend it in with the approximately 4x6 area that was hanging down and dripping wet? Thank you so much. I love your show, and I trust you.
Wow, that's great.
Oh, well, thank you very, very much for that. That trust is very important to us, and we'll always do our best to make sure we give you the straight answer on that. And I'll tell you what, on this one, I have to be honest with you, on a popcorn ceiling or almost any textured ceiling, it's really hard to go right in the middle of a ceiling like that, especially after it's been wet, because you never know how much swelling or damage that might be existing there that you actually don't see. To repair just one little small patch is really hard to make it blend in just about any room. Then you have coloration issues that will require you to paint it yet again. So just a few options to think about. One would be, in order to scrape the entire ceiling, and what you're referring to, what I mentioned on my television show, is if you have a popcorn ceiling that has been painted, most of the time it's not painted when it's put on there. That's one of the advantages of it. But if it's painted later on, boy, it locks it in, and it is very hard to scrape that off. Not impossible, but it's very, very hard. So when you already have the damage that you have now there, I would consider veneering over the entire ceiling. And there's almost no preparation needed whatsoever other than to identify where those ceiling joists are. And then you can use 1/4-inch drywall and just put it right over what's there. Make sure your screws go up through that drywall into your ceiling joist. And then you've got a brand new ceiling. You've wiped out all the old woes, and then it can be finished and painted. Now, if you want popcorn again, certainly spray the popcorn on there, but most likely you'll want to go with a smooth or semi-smooth ceiling. I think that'll probably be the very best way to go. Let's squeeze another one in here.
My question is there any way to make a wood frame house, shingle roof here in Florida more hurricane-proof?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's more difficult to do it on an existing house than if you're building a house from scratch. But the very first thing I would suggest is check with the local building department, because I'm sure they have specific recommendations for your area. But you can put up hurricane shutters, impact-resistant windows and doors if you're replacing those. There are hurricane straps and clips that are galvanized zinc metal fasteners that you can use to tie the rafters to the walls and the walls to the foundation. So there are things you can do in a retrofit situation. Danny, living down in the hurricane area more than I am here in Connecticut, probably has some other suggestions. But that's where I would start with the building department, and then try these, at least hurricane shutters and some hurricane clips.
And also up in the attic area, if you have access there are so many hurricane straps and clips that are available through Simpson Strong Tie. And you can buy those, and basically you're just nailing those to the juncture between where your ceiling joist and your rafters go together, nailing those down to the plate. Some attics are more accessible than others, but either way, that's a way that you can really get in there. And the more you tie all of those components together, the stronger your house will be. We encourage you to leave us a recorded question anytime that you want, and all you have to do is you can do it anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When the urge hits you, just pick up the phone and call 800-946-4420, the world-famous Today's Homeowner Hotline. I'll tell you what, the opportunity for Joe and I each week to engage with people from all over the country that have such a passion for their home. I mean, isn't that cool? I mean, one of the things I can remember every single time I've purchased a house, and that first night you stay in the house, and I mean, that's about as a proud a moment that you ever have when you secure that home. And if you are listening and you own a home, you know exactly what I'm talking about. How cool of a feeling that is, whether it's a new home or an existing home. And so it's great when we can share with you things along the way each week here on Today's Homeowner to help you maintain that type of feeling in your home. And a lot of times that can happen when you have an aggravating problem that you just keep putting off, and then you take care of the problem, and it makes you really feel good that you're taking care of it. And a lot of times those problems can be solved with our simple solution that Joe shares with us each week. Joe, what do you have for us?
Okay, Danny, here's when you need to drill holes in a piece of wood to the same exact depth. Let's say you need to drill several holes to the same exact depth. You can buy a little metal collar called a depth stop guide, which you can screw onto the bit. But you don't even need that. With this simple solution, all you need is a strip of masking tape. What you can do is measure up from the tip of the drill bit the distance you want to drill the hole. So let's say you want to drill a 1-inch deep hole. So you measure up 1 inch and you wrap the tape around it. And you cut the tape a little longer so when you pinch the ends together, it sticks off the edge of the bit, maybe like a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch. It forms this little flag, right? So now you just drill the hole until you reach the tape and stop drilling. And there you go. And you can drill repetitive holes. And this is particularly effective when you're drilling down into a horizontal surface, because as you're drilling down, the wood chips will pile up. And as the tape flag spins around, when it just sweeps the surface clean, stop drilling. And you know you're at the exact same depth. And that's all you need is just this piece of tape. And if the tape gets messed up, then you can just obviously easily replace it. But try that. It's a great way to very quickly and inexpensively form a depth stop guide with just a strip of tape.
Well, let me tell you a good example of that is a lot of times when you're remodeling your kitchen, and of course one of the easiest things you can do to improve the look of your kitchen is changing out the hardware. You have knobs, you have the knob screws. Sometimes those screws aren't quite long enough that require you, particularly inside a drawer, to have to countersink just a little bit.
Counterbore through the plywood cab.
Boy, you got to be careful there, because if you go too far, then the screw is going to be too long, and then you've got a problem. So, when you do that and you can gauge the depth of that, then you know for sure that you're getting the right way. So that's another great tip from my buddy Joe Truini. And hey, you want to see a whole bunch more of them, like maybe almost 500 of them? Well, all you have to do is go to todayshomeowner.com/simple solution and sit back, relax, and enjoy watching all of those 60-second video pieces that Joe's produced over the last 20 years. You might be amazed at what knowledge you take away from that you can certainly help with a lot of those little aggravating things around your home. Okay, now it's time for our podcast question of the week. But before we get to that question, a lot of times people will respond to some of the things I heard on earlier podcasts, and I thought this was pretty interesting. Here I wanted to share with you. We had a question about using a garbage disposal if you have a septic tank. And here's what Sue wrote in, said, regarding a septic tank and a garbage disposal, our house came with both when we moved in 2 years ago. I never had a septic tank before, so I was very cautious and concerned about using the disposal. We use it, but sparingly, because we, just the two of us, have 3 large compost bins outside where vegetable and fruit scraps go, along with shredded paper and coffee grounds, eggshells, leaves, garden refuge, and everything else we can put in there. We never put grease down the disposal, and occasionally we'll grind up lemon or orange peels in there for a good smell, and maybe every now and then a treat for the septic tank. I never heard about that one.
A septic treat.
That's right.
Okay.
And on the advice of our plumber, we put in 1 cup of Rid-X down the toilet once a month. I do believe if more people would compost, we'd have a lot less waste in city sewage systems, and we believe it's really helped not to overload our septic tank. Sue, that's a great suggestion there. A lot of times maybe compost piles are a little misunderstood, but once you get started on it, you realize you're creating some really good soil for other uses in and around your house. So we appreciate that. And if you have a question for us, or like Sue, have a comment on some of the things that we've talked about, or some things that you would like for us to talk about, go to todayshomeowner.com/podcast. Now, for that question of the week here, Danny and Joe, I have 2 feet of rotten fascia board in the middle of a 20-foot section. I also have a gutter over the entire span of fascia. I'd like to replace the little small rotten section of fascia board. If I do understand how to do that, but how can I do it without removing and rehanging the gutter? But I am trying to figure it out, how I can just pull that out of there. Is there any suggestions that you might have? The project's about 15 feet off the ground, and I'm working alone. Thanks, Rob. Okay, well, that's interesting, Joe. And I can envision this very well, where maybe the section of guttering actually has contributed to that small section of rotting. And you're thinking probably the same thing I am. That gutter screw or that gutter spike. Maybe the water, the gutter gets dirty from time to time, and maybe that water has backed up and allowed that water into that fascia board and caused it to rot. So I guess the first thing I would do, first of all, 15 feet off the ground, you can get in a lot of trouble there. Make sure your ladder's in really good shape and stabilized and so forth. And I guess, Joe, I would suggest going up there and removing any of the spikes that may be in that section of wood, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, he'd have to. If he wants to remove it, first of all, this job is so much easier if you remove the gutter, but he doesn't want to, fine. If there's a way to cut around it, he can do that. But yeah, I mean, if there's a gutter in that section, in that rotted section, you absolutely have to pull that spike. And if you're going to pull it out, I'd suggest replacing it with a gutter screw instead, which holds better. But if it's not, if this rotted section's in between 2 gutter spikes, which it might, because it's not supported there, it might have sagged and water's overflowing to the back, and maybe the gutter spikes aren't spaced close enough together. But in any case, so I think if the rotted section is within where there's one of those spikes, absolutely has to remove it. And also allows them to cut it away and check the rafter tail, make sure that's not rotted.
And then I could see getting a nice, long, brand new reciprocating sawzall blade, and slipping it up behind there. Maybe even taking some little wedges, wood wedges, to kind of encourage that gutter away from the fascia board a little bit. And then real carefully, boy, that's a tricky one, though, because you've got that eave strip right on top there with the shingles hanging over.
Yeah.
You'd have to have a good steady hand to cut that to 2 times and then pull that out of there. Yeah, that's a tricky one.
He may have metal drip edging flashing on the edge of the roof that's also going over. He should anyway, going over the top edge of this. But yeah, you could use a reciprocating saw. You could try getting most of it with a reciprocating saw, or even a little hand saw, or a oscillating multi-tool, anything you can get up in there. But yeah, I think a reciprocating saw blade, and I would probably use a pretty one with several teeth, not a really rough cutting one, because be a little easier, and just be really careful, because it's because it's reciprocating, it's going out, so you don't want to be banging into cutting it, messing up the roof. So
exactly,
that's gonna be. You may have to finish it off the top inch or so with a little handsaw or something. I don't know how else he'd get up in there.
Well, Rob doesn't say exactly what he does, but if it happens to be that he's a surgeon, he's going to come in pretty handy here because this is a surgical procedure right here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd have to think about it a little more. I mean, I guess once you get most of it cut with a reciprocating saw, that last inch at the very top of the fascia, you should be able to get out. And the other thing you could do is once you cut, let's say it's a 6-inch wide board, which typically is 5.5, 6 inches, cut most of it, then chisel out that large section so you're only going to have like 1-inch strip of wood going across the top.
That's right.
And that would be a little easier to cut out little by little until,
Exactly.
And if you're going to replace it, Rob, replace it with AZIC or some other plastic lumber. Don't put wood back up there.
That's
what
right.
I would
Won't have
recommend.
to worry about it. Won't have to worry about that. But be careful up there on that ladder when you get up there and you're starting to reach over here and reach over there. And maybe you can talk a neighbor into helping you out on that one. That could be a little bit safer.
Yeah, 15 feet's a long way down.
That's a long way down. Well, hope we've been able to help you with that, Rob. And we want to help you. You're listening to our podcast. We want to help you any way we can. So go to todayshomeowner.com/podcast. Leave us a question, comment, anything that you may have. We'll get right to it as quick as we possibly can. And we, as we say every week, we appreciate the great reviews we've gotten. It has driven our numbers up considerably. That means we're able to help more people, more homeowners with problems and challenges they have around your house. And that's what we want to do here at Today's Homeowner with our podcast, with our television show, with our radio show, website, and all of our Checking In with Chelsea episodes. All of this is designed to help you with all those challenges you have around your house. And you know what? We have a lot of fun helping you out along the way. I'm Danny Lipford along with Joe Truini. Thanks so much for spending a little time with us here on this podcast.